Hi, everybody.
Voice crack there. I'm trying to modulate my voice because I'm just getting over some traveler's cold. It's kicking my ass. But tonight, speaking of getting asses kicked, it is the Iron Claw. The Iron Claw. I was looking forward.
Nice segue.
I was looking forward to the Iron Claw quite a bit. It's about the legendary Von Erich wrestling family. Do you know about the Von Erichs, Mama Kay?
How could I not know about them? But I actually didn't know about them.
Wait, really? That actually does surprise me because, you know, we're wrestling fans growing up. You knew wrestling before somewhat, too, growing up? It's not like you were completely... And you know pop... Don't you know pop culture things, though? I thought that wrestling was pretty large in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, so, I mean, growing up I did. My grandfather wrestled in, like, probably this kind of arena, I guess.
Like what the dad would have wrestled in?
What the dad yeah, but probably even earlier than that. I mean, we're talking about probably the 20s and 30s.
Put him up, see? One of those guys.
Gorgeous George, that kind of thing. And then when you guys came along, you and your brother, you liked wrestling, so wrestling was on at the house.
Yeah.
It is never anything that I would seek out. I want to be clear about that. But
why you
I do. Well, and I didn't want to see this movie, honestly, because I was just like, wrestling. I am. So I didn't know about this family, shockingly.
That's a good way to go in.
It really was. It was a great way to go in because, I mean, I think I went with your dad and your brother. Mm-hmm. And I think that your dad kind of had a little inkling, but your brother, Griffin's sitting on the end and he's like, we get like 45 minutes in and he's like, turns and says this amazing thing, which we'll talk about later. But I was just like, how is this possible that I don't know any of this?
Did you do the look? I looked up after, and there's, I don't want to spoil it. There's more that they left out. That's like, we don't want to get into spoilers yet. So the true story of the inseparable Von Erich brothers, who make history in the intensely competitive world of professional wrestling in the early 1980s, through tragedy and triumph under the shadow of their domineering father and coach, the brothers seek larger than life immortality on the biggest stage in sports. 88 on Rotten Tomatoes, 91 with the audience, 8.1 on IMDb, 73 Metacritic. Pretty high scores across the board there. That's a good showing. And who was in this? Zac Efron, the bear guy, also from
Jeremy
Allen White. Yeah. Maxwell Jacob Friedman, Harris Dickinson. Those are the main Von Erichs. And then Holt McCallany is Fritz, the father. Lily James is in there. Is there other people in there? Not really. Not a ton of people in there.
Well, the mom.
Oh yeah, what's her? Oh man, I feel bad leaving her out now.
I forget. And I can't remember her name, but she did a lot of TV.
Mara Tierney.
Yeah, Mara Tierney.
There we go. I think there might be other cameos. I wasn't really looking for that in here. Either way, if you haven't seen Iron Claw in theaters, go in knowing not as much as you'd think. Actually, I think is kind of better because there's some surprise. I agree. There's a lot of surprises, but also be ready. It's a heavy movie, so if you think it's going to be like a triumphant, fun family wrestling movie, it's much closer to something like The Wrestler, but maybe even sadder than that. So, spoilers ahead. And Iron Claw, Von Erich family. We start in, I guess, the moderate past where the first couple of kids are young, and we see the patriarch of the family, Fritz Von Erich, he's wrestling in the ring, and they're struggling. They're living out of a trailer, and he's just bought a Cadillac that they can't afford.
Right.
And he's like, I'm going to protect this family. Nothing bad will ever happen again because we're protecting each other. We're here to, this family. This is protection of the family. And so then we cut to later, and all the boys are these gangly, scary looking gentlemen, grown up, very scary children. This guy has reared. But the Von Erich,
I only think they're scary because of their haircuts, honestly.
They are gangly, strange muscled group of men, and they all live. They all have this look to them where I'm like, oh my god, this is very distinct of the time. They look like the guys. I guess they did a good job of that, but they all live together. They all wrestle together, all of them except for Carrie at the beginning because he's trained to be an Olympian, and their father is very tough on them, and they're all have to be destined for greatness. There's rankings and a lot of machismo and competition.
Oh my gosh.
And to just an absurd degree, led by the dad. And they start succeeding after some stuff in the beginning. And the pressure starts to get to them, and there's a family curse that Zac Efron always talks about. Kevin Von Erich, it's kind of his point of view movie for the most part. He's the main Von Erich we would follow as an audience member, and bad stuff happens to the Von Erich family. Horrible stuff, really. And then I looked up afterwards because I heard that the real story is even worse. I was like, oh my god, they actually had to cut tragedies out because there was not enough time to fit all the tragedies in the movie. So they pared it down to these tragedies that we will discuss. Okay, Iron Claw, feel good movie of the year.
Feel good movie of the year. I felt so good leaving the theater because I wanted to leave the theater before something else bad happened to this family. I'm really glad I went in blind, honestly, because as I'm sitting there, I'm like, there's no way that all of this stuff can happen. Wow, what a story. And then your brother leaned across and he said, this is a true story. I know everything that's going to happen. And I was like, what?
Oh. You didn't know this is a true story?
Didn't know it was a true story.
Oh.
Didn't know that your brother had the knowledge of this, because this isn't in... I'm not saying that everything you guys know is because I taught it to you, that it's my wheelhouse. But when wrestling, I felt like, was when you guys were here. You guys were home. And this is
before our 15. Time, though. This is like...
I was going to say, this is 15 or 20 years
we were
after.
Born, really.
Yeah. So I don't know if I don't know about it because I was, in the shadows when you guys were watching that, then why do you know about it kind of thing?
It's almost like we've been living adult lives for some years now.
It's almost like you could do your own thing. But I didn't know. I mean, he doesn't.
I didn't know.
No, I didn't know. Nobody really talks a lot about wrestling in our family, even though when I'm saying things like, yeah, you guys wanted to watch Monday Night Raw or whatever.
Yeah, this was 15 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago. This is...
Yeah, so why would you know?
Well, I just like wrestling as him too. We like it as like an art form. It's like a good... I like movies and I like sports. It's storytelling and athletics. It's a very...
A sports movie like your dad likes?
Well, it's a sports, but it's like I like wrestling. I like the operatic nature of it, where it's more theater, but it's like meathead theater. That's kind of fun. It's the same reason I like David Lynch stuff. It's like soap operas, but then it's like disturbing. Like it's a juxtaposition that I'm glad other people find amusing. I'm surprised they do, but probably not for the same reasons.
Well, I mean, it can run the gamut. I mean, your 92-year-old grandmother, should we reveal to the audience, is a big wrestling fan.
She hasn't missed any Monday Night Raw ever, probably.
Unless there was an Angel game on, she'd probably be torn about what to do.
She'd look at the scores while the thing was on.
That's possible. So I think it's kind of funny that that's also a piece of this, that wrestling kind of still every so often pops its head up in a weird place. Yeah. Maybe
there's still Von Erich's wrestling today, even though that seems impossible based on what happens.
I thought he changed his name to not Von Erich because he was worried about the curse.
I think he might have, but there are Von Erich children wrestling today, 2 of which are his. So, yeah. One of which is someone else's.
Boys had kids.
Yeah,
they all seem to have died so young.
Well, I mean, I guess we are in spoilers now. We are in spoilers now.
Sorry.
So you didn't know anything going in. The tragedy in this movie is every Von Erich much dies. Yeah, and let's go through the roster here. There's 5, there's 6 Von Erichs
in the movie.
But in the movie, there's 4 Von Erichs kids. The 4 Von Erich...
mention of another.
Kevin is our main guy, Zac Efron. He is the oldest living brother, but he is the second oldest because they had an older brother who died when he was 6. And I don't think they say this in the movie, but in real life, looking up after, he was electrocuted and then he fell face forward into a puddle and drowned in the puddle. So...
Oh, okay. Because they're cursed.
Yeah, so that's
there's no other reason for that.
And they don't even say that in the movie because you would be like, why would you leave that horrible real life thing out? Because there's too much other stuff. There's like 10 minutes in here. There's like a 10 or 15 minute span in here where my jaw does not leave the floor. I'm just like, oh my god, they can't. This can't keep happening. And they cut around it. But Kevin is.
So now Kevin by default is the oldest.
Kevin is the oldest, yes, and our audience surrogate. And then the next oldest is David, who is like a blonde, tall guy. He's got like the best like speaking abilities. He's the most like outgoing, I guess, of the brothers, I would say. Kind of Kevin's the leader, but like only because he's older guy, and this guy's more articulate, better on the mic as you find out, and the one that they start pushing as the star. Then there's the fourth brother, Kerry, who if you know wrestling and you didn't know Von Erichs, Kerry's I think the kind of the most famous one. He actually had some title. Really? Yeah, he had some real title runs, and he wrestled with his leg like that in real life for years.
Okay, without
people knowing. Because they're fucking insane people. But anyway, we'll get to Kerry. Kerry is the fourth Von Erich, who would have been an Olympic star if it weren't for some tragedy. Then there's the fifth Von Erich, Mike, who is like the artistic one. He's more interested in like the camera work, and he's a musician. Apparently that's based on real life stuff, and he's kind of forced to wrestle after the beginning of the tragedies, or the next string of tragedies. And then in real life, there was a sixth Von Erich, who was the youngest. He was smaller in stature. I think he was like 5'4", and he had a bunch of health problems and also passed away. So they don't even go into him, but died at like 21 or something. So I think also killed himself. So
shot himself in the head.
Speaking of also killed himself, all these guys killed themselves except for Kevin, who survives. And David didn't kill himself necessarily, but he did die when he was 25 from something. They said intestinal blockage or something. In real life, they said maybe heart attack, maybe drug overdose, cover up. But his late 80s. No one was paying attention. And that's the first domino of that generation. And then all these guys killed themselves in their 20s and 30s because of crazy injuries and just bad news. Bad news for this family. So that's what happens to these people.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin survives. I'm glad of that. The Von Erich that I really wished that would just die is the dad, of course.
Oh my God.
The thing about this and the storytelling, first of all, you do have to get past the bad haircuts because those are really hard. And their body shapes are so like mesomorphic. They're just crazy.
It's that 70s mop top hair on these like He-Man guys, and then and their faces even look
definitely He-Man. It's totally He-Man.
They look like the He-Man action figures, where their faces are also not quite like in real life. These are all handsome guys, but in this movie, the way they make them look with their bodies and their hair, it does not look. I don't find them attractive gentlemen. They're kind of scary looking.
No. And that's questionable to me. Like, why is it like that? Because the dad looks pretty normal. The mom
kind of a Kevin Costner looking guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but pretty normal. The mom is normal looking. Pam, Lily James's character is fine. It's just these boys, and I don't know what it is. Anyway, you have to get past that, and
it's what they look like.
It's what they look like. And then once you're in the thing with Kevin and the boys, the thing that I found so weirdly compelling is that you don't really see, they're a Catholic family. The mom is extremely religious. And you don't see them getting like totally beaten by their parents or their dad on a regular basis, but they seem to have the utmost respect for this man that I have no idea how to categorize it. Like, that, I mean, just by the way he talks to them about saying, well, it's obvious that David's my favorite. And then, he ranks his kids.
But the rankings can change.
That? Yeah, but they can change at any time. So, as you're sitting around trying to just eat your, cornflakes or whatever, it's really unnerving. But they all sit there like, this is normal. You know what I mean? I mean,
didn't know anything else.
Clearly, they didn't know anything else, but they were very compliant. And then you start to realize that is just like they're all so fucked up in the head from either having to wrestle because they don't really have a choice, like Mike, which I felt for him so much that you could just tell he was the artistic one, and the mom sorta a little bit tries to stand up for him, but her solution to everything whenever somebody comes with a problem is, you boys just figure it out amongst yourselves. And it's like, Dad is beating David. You guys just figure that out. Figure out how to work with that. And I think the dad even said it one time to the kids, like, you boys just figure this out. And it's like, this is awful.
Yeah,
they're terrible.
They are, the parents are terrible. Like, they are, the mom, I wish I had understood a little bit more on the mom, if she was just scared of the dad or if she agreed with his tactics. It felt like she didn't, I mean, she winces that he's harsher, but it doesn't seem like she disagreed with his general way of things. At least I didn't see the protest, or if she wasn't painted that way, it was more like, I don't want to have to do this, but his way is the way that gets us the way. Yeah. And his way is terrible.
Well, she seemed to really love him. She seemed to really love her husband.
Oh yeah, although even in the happy times when the wedding, they're all hanky panky. Like, this is not a troubled marriage. Like, this is a strong relationship. Right. So that's what I'm saying. Right. Like, she seems to agree with the way he, or at least feel like this is a necessary thing for us, and
this is how we do.
Yeah, and it's fucking. So I feel so bad for the Zac Efron guy. He's so worst. Good in this. You don't recognize him as Zac Efron because he looks like some other thing. He looks like Donkey Kong. Right. But I think he's excellent in this. He has to do a lot of hard heavy lifting here with the emotional stuff. Like, he's the main kind of linchpin, and he's really good in this. I'm like kind of surprised.
And you don't expect it. You say you're surprised. I think that's true, because I don't think you expect for Zac Efron to be able to pull something like this off. And he does it. And you don't, in the beginning, I thought with the weird hair and the weird body, I felt like this is going to be a little tongue in cheek, like this is, but it wasn't that at all. He was really good.
Because I've seen grown-up Zac Efron, like not Disney Channel Zac Efron, in other things, and he does like some wacky characters, and he'll do a couple of rom-com things, and he's good at that. But like, I didn't know he had range to be like be a character and like be a. This is like what an actor would do. Like, this is like gunning for an Oscar kind of work. I didn't think he had that.
He was good in the supporting role of what's the musical with Hugh Jackman.
Oh, good point. Yeah, he's good in that.
Yeah, he was good as a supporting role there, but he really
it's still
is
his wheelhouse, though.
In this movie.
It's still his wheelhouse, though.
It is
singing, musical, yeah. Still the prettier boy. Like, this guy is not like a Zac Efron guy. The way he's no like interpersonal skills with anyone outside of his brothers, and whenever he's asked someone else, whenever he's not with his brothers, they're just like, oh, so what do you like to do? I like to take care of my brothers and just hang out with my brothers. Right. We wrestle, and I just want to be with them.
My brothers.
And I'm just like, this is fucking so sad, because he's the only one, who all he wants to do is be with his brothers. And then that's one of the heart wrenching lines later is
when he's with his kids.
Yeah, he's like, I used to be a brother. I'm not a brother anymore, or whatever it was, something like that. So, oh my God. Or and the real life line is something like, I used to have 5 brothers, and now I'm not even a brother anymore. Like, ugh. That's fucking so horrible.
Can you imagine?
I can't. It's not like
just one after another, and this is a fairly short period of time, because they all, with the exception of the brother who dies before the movie starts, basically,
the child brother.
This all takes place in a span of less than 10 years. Like, and all the deaths are probably, I don't know.
Yeah, they try to tighten it up, I think, and the storytelling, they make it seem like what's his name wins the championship, the fourth brother, Carrie, and in real life he did win the championship, but he didn't he loses. We kind of glossed over it. His big injury is he has a motorcycle crash. He almost dies and ends up losing part of his leg. I guess in real life, he didn't quite lose the whole leg, but he tried to rehab too quickly, and he lost it on the rehab when they told him not to. So it was once again him being stubborn and trying to come back too early. And so in real life in WWE, or I guess it was WWF at that time. Sorry, turn away. He really did wrestle with a prosthetic for years. Like, he obviously his star fizzled out, but he wrestled with a prosthetic, tried to cover it up, only had a couple like close friends ever see him without it. Like, it was a crutch.
Imagine, wrestling with a prosthetic, a 1980s prosthetic. Like, it's not now. There's not Blade Runner.
I can't even imagine really doing it now. I was like, oh, his career's done.
I can't either.
I was like, his career must be done. Like, there's no way, because I knew enough about Von Erichs. I knew bad stuff happened to him. I I was like, oh, who's gonna die or how many will die? I didn't think it was gonna be freaking a massacre. Like I didn't think. I was like, after the one guy goes brain dead because like his shoulder got separated. I'm like, oh well, this is just everyone's toast now. Like there's just no hope in this story at all. Like we're just going
exactly.
Hope.
For him. He just, he gets a shoulder injury and you're like, oh, it's just a shoulder. And you're like, now he's septic in a coma. And you're like, oh my God. Like,
yeah.
And he has brain damage, but yet he's somehow sort of convinced that he needs to go back and wrestle.
He doesn't feel that way, but like he's forced into it. And then the Carrie wants to keep going, even though he can't walk.
Right.
Like it's just,
and it's Jeremy Allen White does great in that role too, because it's almost impossible to watch him when he's trying to do that. Because I didn't know anything about it when he's in the motorcycle accident, and then they show him the next time you see him, he goes into the kitchen to get like milk for his cereal or something, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, he's missing a leg.
This is only like not like the scene before that was him winning the belt, and the scene before that was the coin toss to determine who, and apparently
who was gonna.
Apparently that's based on real life. That there really was a coin toss to determine who would take his place, take their brother's place in the. And who knows if things would have been different. That's they always, or what's his name, the surviving one, the only one that's still, because the dad's dead too in real life. But the Zac Efron guy is still alive, and Kevin, and he said, I always think about if I won the coin toss instead, like maybe I would have been the one that goes, and then maybe everyone doesn't kill themselves. Like, the chain of events doesn't go. But that's
he has to know that's wrong because
because the problem with Kevin,
the family is cursed.
The problem with Kevin is that he's like the least talented of them all. Like all of his brothers are more talented at other things than he. Like the one's almost an Olympian, and the one after like a month is better on the mic and already like looking better than him. And the younger brother, even though he's a bad wrestler, he has artistic flair. Where like Kevin's strength is I look after my brothers, but he cannot.
And he tries hard.
He tries so hard.
He's a hard worker.
He's the hardest worker, but he's not. He's the least talented of all things. Yeah. He's the thickest brick. Like he's just. It's just so sad. He's got saddled with such bad luck. Like it's just constantly good. I don't know if I've said I love this movie. This was such a good movie. Like I don't even think I said it. How much I enjoyed this. No, because I was just.
This movie was so much. So much more than I thought. First of all, I didn't want to see it, and then
I know you didn't. I said I think it's going to be good. I was like, I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, and you were right, and you do have to, for me anyway, you have to get past how everybody looks because it's weird, and I have to get past that weirdness, and I still would love to talk to somebody to say why did they make the choice, because I did see the pictures of them in real life, and while they looked like the times,
sure,
they didn't look weird, like.
Because they didn't quite look like the right people, so they tried to make them look that way, that just made them look Frankenstein-y, Neanderthalish. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's hard to say. So the scene that is like crazy in this movie is toward the end, where Carrie, right? Yeah, Carrie winds up with a bunch of money and decides to buy a gun for the dad. Mm-hmm. And of course the dad he gives it to him. The dad basically just looks at it.
It's like, oh, that's
and
great.
Then is just that's great, and sets it down. And then Carrie, like, you can see everything change in his face. He's like, aren't you going to go shoot it? You have to shoot a gun when you get a gun, kind of thing. And they live out in the country.
Yeah, you always shoot a gun when you get a new gun. Like,
yeah, this isn't like they live in the city. You can't really walk outside and shoot a gun and expect to,
Yeah, I guess that's good ton context.
Get arrested. Yeah. So, and then I just saw such a change in Carrie's character at that point that I knew, because I didn't know what was going to happen. I was like, oh my God, no, not Carrie too. This is terrible.
You didn't know he was going down. I'm like, yeah. No.
I didn't know when anybody was going to die. And then when they just kept dying, and I kept like looking over at your brother, and he was like just looking like smugly, like, just like, oh I know.
It's all happening.
You just wait. This is nothing, kind of thing. And then Zac Efron I mean, so Carrie kills himself. Zac Efron gets so mad that he almost kills the dad, and that is really
that was
the only
the
time I
fist
was
pump
rooting.
moment. Yeah, I was like,
yeah, I was rooting for death big time. I mean, there's the part where you're like, I don't want the character to do this because he's not that person.
No, I knew he wouldn't actually kill him there. Like, I was like, there's no way he actually just murdered. Like, this is a crazy story, but that's like, I can't. Even if that, like, no, that's not going to happen. But I was just like fist pumping. I was like, get him, fucking get him, yes, get him.
Yeah, because I mean, he certainly could have. And I think that the point that the dad knows that he could have is kind of a nice saving grace for me. Yeah. So that was like the turning point, and then it does get a little sappy with the whole,
I was thinking about that the dead brothers in heaven scene across the lake. Did they have to have that because they're just like, we can't send them home like this, like, because it basically, like, he kills himself and he's at the table with them, and then the mom's painting, I think, at one point, and then they show the kids
later on.
Yeah, like, there's not much narratively that happens left in the movie after Jeremy Allen White dies, right? Like, then it's just like, oh, like, he's playing with his kids, and then, like, you can be our brother. Like, he's like, that's why he learns to cry, and I feel like there's nothing that happens after it. Like, otherwise, you're ending it on, like, it's okay to cry. Like, of course it's okay to cry. Did you just see what you watched?
I don't know. I was torn with the fantasy ending of the brothers going in the water,
Yeah, I didn't like it
in
either.
Their boat to meet the other. Did they have to?
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know who decided, but I think I don't know if it was the director or like the powers that. I feel like you have to for an audience, because otherwise, I'm just thinking of the flow at the end of the movie. It's so down if you don't do that fake thing. Like, you don't do that.
I don't feel like that helped me up at all. Like,
I don't think it helped me either, but I don't know if we're the ones to need to be helped there. I think there's a wide enough audience that needs a little hope of some fake.
I think Zac Efron finally crying, like, after not crying through the whole movie, him finally crying at the end, and it was sappy enough for me for his little boys to be like,
oh, that did work
we'll
on me.
be your brother.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay. And then I'm like, oh no, now we're doing a boat. What? Oh no, didn't we already do this? Why are we doing this again?
The boat was before if they, I would have liked them to just end on the tears too, but I think they have to do the heaven boat, because I think if you're watching, like, there's probably a big portion of people watching this that need that hopeful, at least they're finally at rest now kind of moment, because otherwise they will not like. Some people need that. They need that.
I guess.
I disagree with it. Like, I think it's a weaker choice. I don't think it, like. Yeah. And he's like, "Oh, I guess you're my big brother," and it's like a little 6-year-old kid, and like, I don't know. It's
yeah. I didn't like the choice. You saw it in the theater, right? I think we all saw it
in a packed theater. So. I saw it this morning, actually, and it was.
Yeah,
I saw it at an 11 a.m. show in a packed theater, and we're doing this weeks after it's come out. Yeah, people are seeing it still. I mean, people go to my theater too, but yeah, it was packed theater.
Well, our theater had it wasn't packed, but it had people in it. But I don't think I've ever been, even with the so-called uplifting ending, I don't think I've ever been in a theater where there's been where there's been less sound at the end of the movie. Like, even people just getting up and putting their jackets on was the most silent thing ever. It was just...
No one was crying? Like, openly?
No one was crying.
Oh, I heard some tears in our theater. You guys start crying?
We're talking about Northeastern people. They don't...
Oh, you should have heard the audience at the end of The Whale when I saw that like a year and a half ago. That was like the best. Mm-hmm. That was my favorite ending moment, because I was at Nicole and she was crying a little bit, because you can't not cry at the end of The Whale. But I was not the only one, like, openly sobbing. Like, I could hear the people in front of us sobbing. I could hear the people to the right of us sobbing, like, for like 4 seats away, like, very loudly, like the over the music. It was so loud. It was wonderful. I was like, that's great experience.
There was no people doing or saying anything, and that's very typical of here, but just to not be able to hear people put their coats on and walk away. It was just silent. I did go to a movie recently where people clapped at the end, which was very unusual for where I live. So
clapping,
interesting.
The only thing I didn't mention in there that I really wanted to was, I like montages. That Tom Sawyer montage is the stuff dreams are made of. It's the best storytelling beat in this movie, because they're basically their whole good times in the length of Tom Sawyer. Like, they play most of the song. It's like 3 minutes probably. And so it's when Carrie starts training, and like he's like, I need you to join the family. I wouldn't ask you to wrestle. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So you got to join your brothers, and you got to yeah, exactly. So, and then the youngest brother puts the record thing down, and then and then you see Jeremy out of the way, and he looks back over his shoulder, and then he cuts to them. First time, the three of them, the Von Erich brothers, and they're all going in, and then it's just, it's cutting all around, and then it's also showing their physical abuse they're taking on their bodies. They're all becoming drug addicts, and they're partying, and things are going well, and then things are going badly, and it's all happening in the it's so good. I was like, this is montage, baby. This is and like it's 2 hour and 15-minute movie. You have to put a lot of stuff in there. I was even pointing out earlier in the first 15 minutes or so, I was like, a lot of exposition, like kind of clunky exposition. But I kind of forgive all that now because you need so much breathing room in the last hour to like do all the tragedies that you need to kind of, you got to get there. And they get there so well. Like they get there so quick and well that by the time it's the wedding, I care about all the brothers and I want them to do so well. And then, then when it starts happening, you really feel for it all. It's a good trick.
Kind of just wish that something would happen to the dad like 15 minutes into the movie and then we could all just go home because I feel like he's the jinx. He's the black cloud over the family. It's not, he's trying to relive something that never really happened for him. And he blames, we don't even go into his character. We haven't gone into his character at all, but he blames everyone else for the fact that he isn't a world champion and, all this garbage and, I don't know. They get to finally fight Ric Flair, and that's like the biggest thing for the dad is that boys are, their victories are, he takes them 100% as his victories.
When the triple tag team match for the first, as brothers, they win the tag titles for the first time. He's like, and he's going to be, and then Carrie's going to be, or Mike's going to be champion, and then Carrie, and then he does the regular thing right there. It's like, every single one of them, and then they're, all the brothers look at each other like, okay, like, this is not what we fucking hate. And then he says the youngest brother, and then he's like, what? Like, I don't even wrestle. Like,
he's like, I got to go home and play my records.
He's such a fucking asshole.
It's the saddest movie I've seen in a long time, but very well done.
Oh, it's so good. It's so well done. Yeah. Do you recommend it, though? Do you recommend the Iron Claw?
I do recommend it. I can't ever remember the name of it, so it's really hard to recommend. I just say that wrestling movie that's out.
But he says, he lifts his hands up. You said, you will never forget the name.
Yeah.
That is the hand that was passed down through our father that will break your head, or I don't know what he says, but he's gonna.
Yeah, but guess what? I actually forget the name, so that's just, that's just me.
And it was all in for Vane then. That family is in Vane. I did like the ending where like the current the Kevin's got the ranch now, and then the next generation lives on with him. I think. Oh yeah, so real quick, the current Von Erichs are alive and not in horrible condition like the other ones. Marshall and Ross Von Erich are two of the kids of Kevin, and they wrestle professionally. And then Carrie Von Erich, I think, has a kid too. Lacey Von Erich, who was a women's wrestler. I think I remember her from Total Nonstop Action Wrestling. Is that where she used to wrestle? I watched for a bit. Yeah, TNA for a while. She's only 37. Anyways, two recommends for Iron Claw. It's great film. It could be talked about in a week or two here when we do the top 5 show. It's possible. It might.
Could be.
It's a lot of competition at the top this year. I might have to do a top 10. It's hard. Really, it's hard.
Oh no. Narrow it down.
This is the year I've seen the least movies, but they have been the highest quality that I've made. That since we've started doing the show, this has been a high quality year, and not even everything that was supposed to come out this year came out. Like Dune got pushed, and something else got pushed. I don't know. I saw a poster for it. If you have things to recommend to us, we have January now and then February, so that's gonna be some downtime. Films with Women in My Life on Facebook. Reach out to me on Instagram, or you want to start following again because it's gonna be the tournament soon, the 2023 Movie of the Year Listener Tournament that is coming up shortly. So Films with the Women, Brennan _podhost on Instagram, and Films with Women in My Life. I already did that part. Why am I haven't done this in like a month.
We're on YouTube also.
I've been away. I've been away. I've been sick, so I'm not on my A game. So YouTube, Films with the Women on YouTube. Thank you. Okay. We did it all. I'll cut around that. Thank you, OK, for being on the Iron Claw.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So next time, this is Brennan signing off, saying thanks for listening and enjoy your movies.
Thanks for listening to Films with the Women in My Life. If you enjoyed being a listener in our life, please rate and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Keep up with the latest from the show on Instagram at Brennan_podhost, on Facebook at Films with the Women in My Life, and on Twitter at FilmsWomenPod. Finally, you can email the show with questions and suggestions at filmswiththewomen@gmail.com. Original music for the show was created by Ian Burke and Chris Iwanek. Original artwork created by Nicole D'Alessio. This show is produced by Brennan Snyder. Thank you again for listening and enjoy your movies.